For the past 2 years, we've seen both rent prices and home prices increase and soar like crazy, adding $100,000 to the median home sales and also seeing double-digit percentage increase on rent prices as well. So with both rent prices and home prices going up, does it make sense to rent or to go and buy?
So I am confusion.
Now, while on the surface, it does seem to make more sense by buying and paying a lower payment every month with your mortgage payment versus a higher rent payment. But the answer to this question is very complicated, and there's a lot of different variables that we'll have to look at with this video. I mean, heck, even popular finance websites like NerdWallet has a calculator to show you what comes out top over the next 30 years, buying or renting. And don't get me wrong, guys, it's a great tool, but it doesn't factor in things like cost of interest, lifestyle choices, the opportunity cost of investing in the down payment, and also the hidden trap that I often talk about when it comes to your mortgage. Oh, and with the mortgage trap, I'll talk about it in the end of the video. Let's go and first start this video with the financial perspective of the cost of each of the payments. And I do have to admit that this is comparing apples to oranges, but let's go and look at it from a cash flow perspective. And then from there, let's go and break down the real financial value between renting versus buying. So according to the Redfin's data, the average national rent right now is around $1,836 every month, and the average mortgage payment is at $1,258. And again, we're gonna just compare from cash flow perspective, and from the surface, it looks like the average mortgage payment pretty much wins in terms of how much money you save every month. But let's go and look at this as well. We're assuming that the Redfin data isn't necessarily factoring some of the ancillary costs of owning homes, such as your property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and so on. So I went and dug up the national average for property taxes, which is about $126.25 every month. The average insurance premium cost is about $109.33 every month per $250,000 of coverage. So if your home value is increased, you're gonna see a larger insurance premium every single month. On top of that, we also have the cost of maintenance, which I'm factoring about $180 every month. And that's because in this example, we're comparing it to the rental rate of $1,836. So I've basically taken 10% of the rental rate and factoring into the maintenance. And I'll show exactly why in just a sec. But the total cost, including the mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and of course, there's some other ancillary costs that might be involved, but we're getting conservative here. But the total net is about $1,673.58. Now, guys, just a reminder, this is just from a cash flow perspective. I know mortgage payments is not necessarily a cost, but we'll get to that in just one sec. So the net difference between the national averages of both is about $162.42. So it looks like with this example, buying a home does seem to make more sense from a cash flow perspective. Now, of course, for you to do the math, you have to also consider your own property taxes for your area. So if you're in Illinois, California, and Connecticut,
good luck, everyone.
And of course, you have to factor in your own insurance premium that pretty much varies depending on the state and the area you live in. So as you do the math, you may realize because the property taxes are so absorbently high, it actually doesn't make sense to buy a home from a cash flow perspective, and it may actually cost you even more money every single month when compared to renting. But just as I briefly mentioned, we can't look at it from strictly a cash flow perspective because your mortgage payment makes up of two different things. The first part is your principal payment, which is basically the loan amount itself, but as you pay down the principal, the more equity you build, and which equity is something that you can tap into in the future. But not only that, your equity becomes your personal wealth. So as you pay down the principal, you build more equity, you build more wealth down the road. So really, the principal payment part of your mortgage payment doesn't really constitute as cost in the long run, although it is something you pay every single month. Now, in the same line of thinking, when it comes to maintenance and upgrades and any kind of improvement to your home, this can also add value and equity to your home. So in other words, when you add a $2,000 or $3,000 granite countertop, that may translate to $10,000, $20,000, or even $50,000 of additional value to your home. That ultimately adds to your equity, which ultimately makes you more wealthier. So ultimately, when it comes to the cost of maintenance and also doing some upgrades, it may not constitute as a cost as it does give you a return on your investment and the upgrades you do. So from that perspective, it does seem like buying a home makes more sense because you're building equity, and most of the time, even with the added cost of maintenance, insurance, and property taxes, the payment might actually be lower than your rent because typically landlord has to also add in his or her profit margin on top of the cost of owning the home. And some more advantage of buying a home is that you get to write off your interest you pay for your mortgage payment every single year. And also you get to write off the property taxes every single year, capped at $10,000 unless the tax rules change in the future. So to stack everything up when it comes to buying a home, not only do you get to build equity over time and building your wealth, but you get to write off your taxes and the interest, which also further saves you money when it comes to your income taxes. But there's a big giant con when it comes to buying a home and taking a large down payment to purchase a home. Now the big argument against buying a home is why not take the down payment that you're making and investing in the markets instead, where, if you buy some of the ETFs, crypto, or maybe even other real estate, you could be earning 8, 12, or 15% return every single year. Let's say you were going to make a down payment of $50,000, but instead you take that and put it in the market at 8% return every year. That means in 30 years, you would have $503,132.84 in that investment. So essentially, you would have 10x the investment of $50,000 if you were to put it in the market at an 8% return. So the argument is really of an opportunity cost. Rather than putting a large down payment on your piece of real estate, why not make an investment and make more money at the end of the road and just continue renting all through your life? I have to say, this is a valid argument in a question of really, why not invest more? Why not take that money and grow your wealth 8%, 12%, 15%, or even up to 20%, just like what we've seen with S&P for the last 12 months. So if it doesn't come down to a financial perspective, now it's time to consider a lifestyle perspective of whether buying or renting. Now, the first pro of buying a home really is you get security, you get privacy. If you have pets and kids, you can be as loud as you want, assuming that you live in a single family home.
Oh my God.
And of course, you can go and add in your own taste and flavor of furnishing, design, paint colors, granite countertops, you name it. That is completely up to you. Although there are financial perspective as far as upgrades goes, I'll go ahead and make a separate video about that pretty soon. But that is another pro that you do have when it comes to buying a home. But here's some of the cons of buying a home and being a homeowner, which I frankly agree with, and that is a time of maintenance. It takes time to do the lawn mowing, it takes time to do the landscaping, it takes time to take care of the little things that breaks down over time when it comes to your home. And sure, you can make the argument of, oh, we can just hire those people out, you can get contractors coming in, but that only adds additional costs to the financial perspective in comparison of buying a home. But when it comes to renting, your landlord pretty much takes care of all the maintenance and repairs when they come, no matter what the cost. But of course, that doesn't mean that you can go around and breaking stuff in your rental home. There are things you can do that is your fault, and of course, you have to pay for. So as a busy entrepreneur running a hedge fund company, a consulting firm, as well as financial services firm, I don't have time to go and maintain and repair and fix these little things when it comes to home maintenance. And honestly, this is probably the biggest reason why I still rent, because maintenance items and repairs gets taken care of by the property management team. But of course, a lot of that is being overruled by the fact that now that I have a kid and I want to make a better decision for my family, and therefore I am looking to buy a home in the next 2 to 3 years so that as my family grows, I have a larger space to live in, so it just makes more sense from a lifestyle perspective. Now, another con to consider when it comes to buying a home and being a homeowner is that you're less mobile. Now, according to the US Census Bureau data, the average adult is going to move 11.7 times in their lifetime, which means that be ready to move every 6 to 8 years on average, according to the US Census Bureau data, which means you have to list your home and sell it and go through the whole entire process over and over. Now, a few moments ago, I talked about how the US Census Bureau data suggests that you can move every 6 to 8 years, assuming that you live to be about 80 years old. Now, if you take a look at any 30-year mortgage and its amortization chart, you'll notice that the first 10 to 15 years is going towards interest. Using the national average for the mortgage payment of about $1,200, you can expect to see about $500 or $600 of that to be interest payments for the first 5 to 10 years. So when you add the fact that you're likely to move every 6 to 8 years and you basically sell your house and buy a new home and get a new mortgage, what you've just done is spent pretty much most of your time paying a lot of interest and not enough equity. And unfortunately, if you're moving and buying a new home every 6 to 8 years, getting a new 30-year mortgage, what's really happening is that you're staying stuck in that first 6 to 8 years of your mortgage cycle, where a good chunk of that is unfortunately interest payments. So my point is that if you're not building equity fast enough in that first 6 to 8 years, what's really happening is that you're in this vicious cycle of making interest payments over and over again every 6 to 8 years, which could offset all the costs that we just talked about of buying a home versus renting. And of course, one of the natural solutions is that as your property appreciate, you build more equity, but that's not always guaranteed. The real guaranteed, or what is in your control, is to pay off your mortgage faster within the first 6 to 8 years of being a homeowner. Now guys, I know that sounds really far-fetched, but I did make a video on how to pay off your mortgage in as early as 5 to 7 years. Definitely go and check that video right here, click on it, and I'll show you how to pay off your mortgage. So hopefully this video gave you some insight as to buying versus renting. Definitely go check out the video where you can go and learn how to pay off your mortgage. So go make millions and Brazilians.